We also have an email from Ryan with the subject, bikes that look good. It's more important than we want to admit. He says, hi everyone. I recently got my hands on a Trek Madone 8 in white. It's the wrong bike. Also, I added this because I feel this to my bones because I want one of these bikes. He says, it's the wrong bike for me. A semi-casual, slightly overweight, although less since I got the bike, 40-year-old. I should have an endurance bike. However, I like it loads. It's a hoot to ride. You put your feet down and it goes like stink. It's more comfortable than it looks. If I'm honest, I think a big part of why I like it is that it looks absolutely outrageous. Whenever you stop at a coffee shop, other cyclists have a look at it. I'm sure some think it's super ugly, and that's okay. At least it looks like something. In the review you did of the entry-level Trek bike, there was a discussion of how good looking that bike was and whether or not it matters. I think it matters. I always feel really lucky to have the Madone, and I also keep it cleaner than I would if it was less interesting to look at. What bikes have you had or ridden in the past that have made you feel something just by how they look? I know Jimmy has a bike with a custom paint job. Maybe we should upgrade the paint on the bike before the wheels. Thanks, Ryan. I know you have opinions on this, Nick.
Loads.
I think it is so important that... So it has to fit right first. You have to actually be able to ride it and not be uncomfortable. But how it looks, I think, is really, really important to how excited you will be to want to keep riding it. And I think that's why I've ended up with so many unique bikes, because that, for me, is really, really important.
What I would say is, I think that we're always cautious to talk about how something looks because... You guys, I say you guys because I only really do this podcast. You guys are doing the stuff with bikes and you are, for want of a better term, influencers in this industry. And if you're saying that's good looking, that's crap, that's good looking, that's crap, on something as arbitrary and as subjective as looks, number one, I think that causes a bit of upset to people who have those bikes. No one wants to be told that their bike looks ugly. And it's something that's completely subjective. Just because you say their bike is ugly does not mean their bike is ugly.
Totally.
So I always try to instill in you guys, it's why you've joked about, say, like the word ugly is banned, because I just don't think it's appropriate. So that's why we maybe sit on the fence about it. However, I think personally, you do have opinions on what you think looks good and doesn't look good. And it's the same thing as the helmets as well. Just people, there is an amount of style that goes with these things and people want to look stylish, whatever that means to them.
I think what Ryan has said at the end, I wish was more accessible. So he said, maybe we should upgrade the paint on the bike before the wheels. Perhaps not that, but I wish it was easier for people to be able to get their bikes custom painted, because having someone that has done it maybe 4 or 5 times on various bikes, it's so amazing to be part of that process and it to be exactly how you want it. But the costing of it is astronomical, especially if you want something really, really tricked out. A decent amount of that cost actually comes from removing the existing paint and getting the bike prepped to be sprayed. I've sanded down a bike myself and it took, I think it was hundreds of hours, like so many days.
That was the biggest mistake.
It was a very big mistake. But I do agree.
I did warn you.
I wish it was more accessible or easier to actually get a bike sprayed and make it more unique to yourself, because it's such an amazing process to be part of.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad he brought up the Trek Madone 8 because this is the exact bike I just had this thought about the other day. It's not for me. I don't think it's an ugly bike at all, though. I do like that it's quite a good... the Look 795 Aeroblade RS is a very similar looking bike. I really like that bike. I think the Madone for me is more of a small things that I don't like, but it's minor. But then what I realized what I don't like about it is that somebody posted a photo the other day with really skinny, shallow wheels in it. And it just looked odd for me personally. And that's why I didn't like the look. And then that just made me realize that with the thin wheels, I know we can't use the word, but for me, it's probably one of the ugliest bikes I've seen. With the deep wheels, I would still say it's not my favorite, but it'll still be it's still classed as a sexy bike. So I think paint schemes up, but there's small tweaks you can do to a bike to make any bike look nice. If you take, for instance, a classic steel frame, like your Moss, and you put really shallow wheels on, it looks one way. And some people really like that look. I like the look. But then if you put a set of deep section carbon wheels on it, the bike looks completely different. And other people like that. Bizarrely, I like that look as well. So I can't really decide.
But the point of what you're saying here is it's subjective.
Yes, it's perfectly something, and that's what I mean. What I would say is I think that's perfectly fine. As long as you accept that you like the bike because it looks nice. I've got loads of my customers buy aero bikes, and I keep saying like you definitely don't need an aero bike. You're struggling to ride at 17 miles an hour. Why are you riding an aero bike? But they're like, look at it, perfectly fine. You've got the money. Your kids aren't going hungry. Buy whatever you want.
Agreed. As long as you're not imposing your opinions about what's
and
cool
as long as
and
you're
not
telling,
other people.
don't go around telling other people their bikes are ugly to their faces because somebody saved a lot of money.
You're saying just do it behind their back?
No, but I mean like, no, you could think it's an ugly bike, but just, I find it, I got in a massive fight in the shop once because a guy came in and was telling somebody else his bikes are ugly. There was also a look back in the day, one where I had that funny stem. And I was like, this guy saved a lot of money to buy this bike. I mean, like now he's putting doubts and he's going to like, not like it. Anyway.
It is a very complex answer though, isn't it? Because it's more than just looks. So I think my Howler is probably the best example of it for me. My Howler is the most recent custom bike that I've made. And based on the person that I am now, just ticks so many boxes. The geometry, just thinking about the geometry makes me want to ride it because I know how it feels when I'm on it. Then I look at it and it's like the Batman of bikes, the Batmobile of bikes, and I absolutely love it. There's lots of stuff.
Your Howler bike's a good example again as well for me because I think the paint scheme is amazing. I think the top tube, the down tube, the way the 650B wheels integrate in it all looks really nice. The only thing I don't like about it as much, which I would change, is the seat stays. That's minor because they're thinner. And I know why Billy's done that because it makes the bike more comfortable and gives compliance, but I'd want them to be just as thick as the rest. But I said, that's such a minor detail, but that's the thing where everything's subjective and objective and some people are going to like certain things. I like a traditional frame, so I want my top tube to be level, not sloping, but loads of people like sloping. Some people like drop seat stays, but then other people go on the internet saying it's a hideous bike when it's got drop stays and they want classic lines. Like you want with that Sato Solar, you like that one because it's got a classic frame look. So I think it's going to be eras when you got into cycling, what kind of cycling you like. A lot of stuff's going to change it. The easiest way to make your bike look different is wheels though. Wheels and tires. He's asking about our bikes.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
What was he asking about our bikes?
What bikes have you ridden in the past that have made you feel something just on how they look?
I'm really excited about this.
Go on then.
Can I start?
Go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
So everybody knows that I love gravel. I ride gravel most of the time. I don't like road is a pure inconvenience for me personally. I know it's happy for other people to ride. But I got a phone call from an Italian man, Alessandro Battin, and he was showing me a new frame set they were going to release. It's called the Roma. And it's weird. I didn't think this would ever happen to me, but I saw the bike and I instantly fell in love. I bought one straight away. Even though knowing I don't like riding the road, I'm not going to ride on the road. I've bought a very expensive road bike, which is hopefully coming next 2 weeks. And I haven't been this excited. And actually, I can't remember the last time I've been this excited by a bike. And that's, it's...
You complained when... So Billy built my Howler bike. He's Howler Frameworks, good friend of mine. It took him something like 10 months to actually end up building my bike because he had other stuff to do, which I was very comfortable with. And you whinged about it. And you're probably on about 2 years waiting for this bike now. That is a gross exaggeration. But it is a long time you've been showing me pictures of this bike.
Yes, but and I wanted you to get your bike quickly so I could ride with you on gravel. But yeah, this bike, I'm just excited. And I think that this is probably what Ryan's on about. I am going to ride road more because of the bike and what it looks like, even though I prefer riding gravel. I've gone for a crazy color scheme on it and everything as well. And it's an Officine Battin Roma. And it's just, well, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's definitely mine.
So I would say my Grosier, as it's now become known, which is the one that's been hand illustrated by one of our pals, our tattoo artist pal Scott. I just love it. I love the paint job. The bike that it's built on was a prototype alloy bike for a brand that never happened. and the bike frame, the geometry is absolutely stunning, but just the bike isn't fantastic. So it really upsets me the couple of times I've built that up, and I'm like, oh, I love this bike, and then you ride it, you put a bit of power in, and it's just flexing all over the place. I'm like,
That's a good
so upset.
That's a good example where the geometry and everything can be right, but if the materials and it's alloy,
Yeah.
but it's also how it's put together.
Yeah, it's just not.
It just doesn't ride the same.
It's not a very good alloy bike. The geometry is stunning. The paint job on it is stunning. It's just not very good, which is so upsetting. The Howler's based on the same or very comparable geometry, but for gravel, so it's got a super long wheelbase. That bike is just, every time I look at that bike, I'm just like, yes. I was actually yesterday. I put my hill climb bike, leant it up against it, and I was like, right, winter's coming. It's Howler season. I was gonna tell you. I was gonna be like, right, okay, let's get going again. But I thought I'd save it for today.
Okay, thank you very much. We've talked for a while now, so I'm going to wrap it up. Please keep sending in your emails, stories, suggestions, and fun stuff to wildonespodcast@cademedia.co.uk.